Hello. I'm going to try to make this short and sweet. My slideshow that I've created for my co-teaching reform that I would present to the people that would help with co-teaching, which is my administrators, is quite long. So I'm going to try to skim through some things and kind of give you an overview of my reform. So the first thing that we have to talk about is readiness. I scored medium on the scale of readiness, and that's just because of my experience in leading change. I've only been a teacher for a year and a half, so I'm kind of just establishing myself as a teacher, and leading change is something I haven't done, but I do have success with co-teaching and collaboration. I'm open to learning and asking questions. I'm an active listener, and I'm willing to learn and work with others, which built my confidence in thinking, oh, I can actually lead this change. My participants' readiness. Co-teaching has been a constant practice at W, but it's just been renamed. We don't have a system in place that actually evaluates and lets teachers reflect on it, so it's just kind of been something teachers have been forced to do. We have classes and workshops that are offered at a district level that I've heard are great, but we aren't required to take those classes. We're just given the option to. So actively not taking advantage of them is a weakness of my participants in the reform so far. But however, the participants that would be in this reform are the teachers, and they are flexible, they're willing to help, and they're comfortable with taking risks, which gives me the confidence that they, really want to get this going as a reform. My organization's readiness is medium because we have change all the time. We get change so often that this past year we had two different types of change in the way we were supposed to give instruction and evaluate our own instruction. So I think we're just constantly waiting for something to change. So how much effort and time do we put in what we're learning now? We don't have anything in place to help teachers critically reflect on their experiences as co-teachers in my organization. So that's why I think co-teaching isn't such a strong practice. And then another reason why my organization is a medium on the readiness scale is because of the new admin that's coming in the fall, which I think will build a new culture. Not sure if it'll be good or bad. Of course, I think it'll be good, but I think the first year of a new principal can sometimes be a little rocky. Positives, though, we all have a shared value of wanting change in co-teaching at W, and there are constant and continual conversations amongst teachers about co-teaching. So I think there is a definite want for something to change. Just a little bit of overview of the data about W and why co-teaching needs to be improved. 50% of students are learning in the co-taught setting at W. There are 30 co-taught courses, and that includes 7th and 8th grade classes. And there's about 15 to 20 students in each co-taught course, and sometimes it's even 30, but I kind of did the math, and that's kind of the range, which puts it at 450 to 600 students being co-taught. W is turning into a Title I school, which will give us more resources, but also makes us a Title I school. About 9% of students have a disability, and about 16% are ELL students. And so when we have those percentages, we want to place those students in a co-taught setting to have 2 highly qualified teachers in order to gain access to those teachers' modifications, accommodations, and instructional strategies that will improve their learning. But W has produced low test scores, and a lot of those students are in co-taught courses. And if you look down here, we've got some data listed for you, and it says level 1 and level 2. Level 1 and level 2 kind of ultimately can be summarized as our students are not, if they're in those levels, they're not on track to attend college. And so if you add up the 26 and then the 30, about approximately 38% right there just for the ELA assessment data, that puts us at over 50% are not on track to go to college, which is alarming. And I can interpret that data for you, but they're high percentages of level 1 and level 2, which means we have a lot of students who are not ready to go, who are not on track to go to college, and a lot of those students are in co-taught courses. So instruction needs to change. I interviewed an admin from my school, and she said ultimately the mission of W is to bridge the transition from middle school to high school academically, socially, and emotionally. We want our students to be independently successful no matter what the case, whether they are economically disadvantaged or non-economically disadvantaged. We have more economically disadvantaged than not, though. This next year, we're implementing a leadership team to look at school-wide data for decision making, which will be excellent. It's kind of what we want to do for the co-teaching reform as well. We're going to spend more time with BIST and PBIS to build more structure for our students, put more systems in place, and have clear expectations for teachers and students both. And when we brought up the topic of co-teaching, she said that she's never seen any data collected for co-teaching and its effectiveness in our district. She did say that that the strength and effectiveness of the team is what really shows, what really produces a good co-taught class. If you have good trust and good relationship with that teacher, they've seen success, but there's been a history of failure at W because teachers are working against each other. There's not an equal workload, and there's not enough time to plan together. And there's conflict with co-teaching because we have been given less time and fewer teachers over the past 3 years with co-teaching. She mentioned that keeping a log to monitor the balance would help co-teaching, and drawing up expectations in the beginning and asking questions as a team would be simple starts to improving co-teaching. What are our resources at W? Well, let's just mention who's involved first. Of course, the building staff, meaning co-teachers and non-co-teachers, and then the co-teachers themselves. So that includes the special education teachers and the general education teachers. Our administration needs to be involved as well, which for W, that includes 1 building principal and then 2 associate principals. And then we have some support staff that will be helpful in this reform as well. School counselors, 1 for 7th grade, 1 for 8th grade, and then a school psychologist that works heavily with the district level with special education, with the special education department, and then relays that information to us, the special education teachers. Next year, we're also getting a building instructional coach, which will be really beneficial to me as the reform planning leader, because she'll be able to work with me to reach other teachers, talk to other instructional coaches, and even help plan and implement some things. And of course, the students will be involved because that's who we are teaching. So to generalize my resources, we've got people, so the co-teachers, the opponents, and other stakeholders. Money will be a resource as well, and I think that we can get that from our instructional coach. That was mentioned to me by the administration. And then time, of course, we need to make time for planning and workshops and PLC time, interviews, etc. So time is going to be a huge resource that I can hopefully provide for this reform by working with the administration. Challenges that I foresee. People typically feel blame when change occurs, according to Spiro, and that was something that stuck out to me, and I think that this will be felt at W if and when I implement this reform. So offering support and reflection will be beneficial to alleviating that. We have new staff, new administration, a new counselor, and also a new school psychologist. A challenge that I have for myself is making sure that I hold on to W's values during the reform. I need to make sure I celebrate success and I build morale. My schedule will also be a challenge because I get involved in many things in order to make more money, in order to get more involved with the students, anything I can to stay busy, but I think this reform will keep me plenty busy. Some strategies to accomplish this reform. I need to first meet with the administration to establish a timeline for it, plan the PLC co-teaching meetings, pull together possible focus group dates, and make sure that my implementation team can be present on those dates. When I have all of that done, I need to do a readiness assessment of my implementation team, because these are the people that are going to be able to meet, discuss, evaluate, plan PLC meetings, evaluate PLC meetings, make reflection times, progress monitor with a reform, and make changes or modifications to the entire reform or even the PLC meetings themselves. I need to have tangible, observable, and achievable elements planned out well in advance. And we can do this with student interviews, data with graphs, teacher strategies, and reflections in co-teaching. I need to remember that there needs to be more benefits than costs. The teachers are going to spend all this time and effort. Is it going to be worth it? Am I going to show that it's worth it, that it's bigger than the cost that they're putting in? I need to plan for an early win. So we need to celebrate something at my first PLC CT meeting. I need to set ground rules, and I need to have PLC CT meetings heavily planned. So we need to have a goal. We need to have food. We need to build a routine and have groups going. We need to make sure that the teachers involved are comfortable, but not are never let them get comfortable, because we're going to be building good collaboration skills and methods. I also want to foster meaningful discussion at those meetings. Scaling and sustaining. So right now I just want to keep this reform at W because it's completely new. We have no data on co-teaching. I want to be able to refine the reform, see success, evaluate it again, maybe move on to other middle schools, refine it, and then adapt it to the high school level. So in order to do that, we need to make sure we're evaluating during the reform. So I need to have my baseline data. I need to gather information in September from co-teachers, administration, instructional coaches, and students. From the students, I need to make sure I have achievement data, so MAP scores, which those will be taken in August. Their grades or any core content progress data that deals with the classes that are co-taught. Their students are going to take a Google survey on co-teaching. And the co-teachers are also going to have a Google survey on the balance between the teaching time, planning, and time and planning done together. The co-teachers are going to be interviewed together, and they're going to be, we're going to ask the co-teachers a set of questions. And this is going to be done by the instructional coach or me. Also, the administration and instructional coach are going to go into the classrooms while teachers are working together and actually co-teaching and observe the practices being done. And with the evaluating being done, everything we look at and all the data we look at, we need to make sure that we have an established outcome. And every time we look at data, we are working and analyzing for that established outcome. We also need time to evaluate, and that can be done in the PLC meetings and after school with some planned meetings for reflections and interviews with the CT teachers. Google surveys are going to be sent out, and those can be sent out to teachers to do on their own time, and then for students, we can have them do it during their bell ringer. Most of the middle school 7th and 8th grade co-taught classrooms have bell ringers to start the day. And that is all I have for my co-teaching presentation. Of course, I go into much more detail concerning specifics at W when I present in front of my principals and other support staff that would be involved in co-teaching to hopefully, get them more on board. But hope you enjoyed, and if you have questions, please feel free to ask.